Fiona Walsh is the founder of Imagine Coaching based in Cork. Her field of expertise is PowerPoint presentation. Today, she is the guest on Business Block with Miriam O'Gara. Business Block is powered by the Women's Inspire Network. Well, hello everyone, and you are very welcome again to this episode of Business Block. As you can see, my guest today is Fiona Walsh of Imagine Coaching. Fiona, you're very welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
How are things going down in Cork?
Yeah, good, all good. The sun's shining, but it's very cold. Probably the same up your way.
Yeah, it is. It is.
For
Although
May,
it's bright, thank
cold.
God for the stretch in the evenings.
I know, yeah.
It's wonderful. Now, you're originally from Birmingham, aren't you?
That's correct. Yeah. I've been in Ireland this is my 22nd year in Ireland now, so a long time. It'll be nearly 50-50.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Well, what brought you over?
Work, to be honest. I'd finished university. I did the degree in chemistry and couldn't find any work in the Midlands. I did get a job eventually. It took me 18 months before I was able to get a job in that area. And it was a dead-end job and there was nowhere to go. So I decided to move to Ireland because it's the Celtic Tiger in 99.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
That's when it kicked off.
That's it, yeah. So it's quite easy to get a job. I wasn't out of work for 18 months. Far from it.
Well, I tell you, just looking at some of I was having a look at your LinkedIn, and there are lots of different companies that are mentioned there. Zenith Technologies, you were 4 years with?
That's right, yeah. I just finished up with them last month.
Oh, yeah. But last month, I was just going to say, when did you finish with them? So,
yeah, it's the 1st of April. That's when I gave up my corporate career to go full-time entrepreneur.
Oh,
so very recent.
It is recent, isn't it? And you're going back. Then it was QC support specialist, 4 years as well.
Yeah,
Oriflame Cosmetics.
That's right. Yeah. I worked with them. That's where I started doing my IT training. Actually, was when I worked with Oriflame in Bray.
And that was 14 years.
Yeah, I started off doing development work. I was making mascaras and foundations. I used to develop those in the lab, and I used to project manage all their subcontract colour projects. So nail polishes, lipsticks, eyeshadows, and I used to travel all over Europe doing first production batches and colour matching with the other companies that were manufacturing. So I've done my bit of high flying.
Yes. So what was your job? Strictly management at that stage, or were you also in the lab?
I would have been in the lab there, so I suppose it was more project management of the actual projects and making sure everything was right for the first production runs. But from a colour perspective, I would have managed a good proportion of the colour projects. And then I moved into a technical role, an IT technical role, to bring in a system that was customised to manage the lab and manage all the formulations. And that's how I started my training career, I suppose.
Yes.
Because I was training all the people that was training the existing staff and any new staff that came in. And one day I just thought that I could do it better. I'd had a train the trainer, sort of 1 day course, which was fine, but I just felt there was more to offer. So I started a diploma in DIT, doing IT teacher training, and did that for a year, and then upped my game a little bit, and then started doing Microsoft training in-house for that company as well, and then ended up going into a management position. So
you mentioned on your LinkedIn that you're a Microsoft Master Instructor. So that was around 2008-ish?
That's right, yeah. If you pass the Microsoft exams and have a teaching qualification, then you get that certification. So it's only for teachers that would have that. They've done an actual teaching course as well as passing Microsoft exams.
Was it then from Oriflame onwards that you were required to do presentations yourself, or had that started earlier? Were you already familiar with them?
Yeah, I was doing presentations with Oriflame, and because then I was doing the training, I was doing PowerPoint training with them, and mostly PowerPoint and Outlook, because I think those are the tools we use most. We didn't really use Word that much, a bit of Excel, but mostly PowerPoint. We did a lot of presentations, you see, external presentations for scientific conferences.
Yes.
And I would have done a bit of proofreading of other people's presentations, or if people were trying to do something that they couldn't manage themselves, then they'd come and I'd help them out with that. So that's where I got quite skilled with PowerPoint and my own presentations as well. But if other people had presentations that they needed some help with, or just wanted it to look better, they'd come and get some advice, and I'd know how to do things because I'd been trained in it.
Exactly. And little did you know that 2019 would mean you'd go into that as an actual profession later on.
That's right. Well, I didn't start that straight away, funnily enough. No. I was made redundant from Oriflame in 2014, and I did think about starting my own training business then. And I didn't, because I was doing a master's degree. So I started that full time. That was up in Dublin, in UCD. My husband's from Cork, so we decided to relocate to Cork. And then I was pregnant fairly shortly after being made redundant as well. So it just wasn't the right time for me. I needed to finish the master's degree, and then we relocated and had my youngest daughter then. And so I actually had 3 years out of work. It's very difficult, I think, if you have a job and you have a child and you're on maternity leave, I think it's easier to go back because you've got a job to go back to at a decent salary, and you've got that expectation. But I think when you're out of work, to then try and get a job is a bit more challenging, because all of a sudden you've got these childcare costs that you're not obliged to pay because you didn't have them before. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. So, yes.
It's a little bit more challenging, and I ended up taking a bit more time out. So a couple of years after she was born, I was off before I went back to work, and then I got a job with Zenith Technologies, who are in the pharmaceutical industry. They're specialising in automation, and like automation of manufacturing. And I was working for Janssen Sciences Ireland, who are making, well, not Janssen, they're not actually making the vaccine there, but the company's making the COVID vaccine. So you've probably heard of the name now. People never used to, but they do now, household name now.
We all knew Johnson & Johnson, but we didn't realise it was Janssen who was behind
That's right,
it.
yeah.
Now we do.
Yeah, so I was working for them, basically doing purchasing work and purchasing a lot of their equipment for the labs, basically.
So I'm just realizing that, even just going back, I mean, it was ExxonMobil Energy, wasn't it, at one stage you were working? So you've got energy in your background, you've got cars in your background, you've got cosmetics, you've got all different types of industry feeding into your experience before you make this decision. What actually brought you to the point where you said, okay, I'm now going to go out on my own? I mean, what made you finally do it last year, really, I suppose?
Yeah, interesting question. I went back into people management with Zenith. I was a team manager on site for them, managing their staff on Janssen site, and I was introduced to coaching. So I decided I really, really liked the concept of coaching, and I went off and did a coaching diploma, which I absolutely loved. And I think as part of that course, that 6-month course, it made me realise that I did want to work for myself. I felt I had more to offer, as an entrepreneur, helping other people, than just working for as an employee. So I started the Business Imagine coaching in October 2019. And then I didn't really know what to do with myself to start with, to be honest, or how to get clients. So what I did, the first thing I did really was to host a charity event. So I hosted a charity event for Pieta House. It was on International Women's Day last year, and it was in a lovely hotel in Cork called the Maryborough Hotel, and it was an afternoon tea. It's beautiful because it was on a Sunday, Women's Day then, so it was actually on International Women's Day, in the hotel in the afternoon. It was women's afternoon tea in the hotel. So myself and some other people that I trained with as coaches, and a few other coaches that I had met, and a yoga teacher, friend of mine, and also a friend of mine plays the flute. So she came along. It was in beautiful, the orangery in the Maryborough Hotel, and she was playing the flute when people arrived, and people all got dressed up. It's lovely, actually.
Wonderful, yeah.
So and it gave me a chance to practice my event management skills, because I didn't have any. So I have some experience with event management now. One event.
Yes.
I raised over €2,000 for Pieta House. So I was
wonderful.
We had a decent amount, and people had a nice day out. And I also had a bit of practice public speaking. I had done a bit of public speaking before, but it was many, many years ago. When I worked at Oriflame, I'd have done some speaking at conferences, but it was just good to practice again and on a different topic. So I enjoyed that. And we did PowerPoint, funnily enough. I did, it was a PowerPoint presentation, so I put everyone's slides together. And then a couple of days later, we were all in lockdown.
Oh, Lord.
So, yeah.
I know it's very,
which,
very difficult, isn't it? I think all of us, our careers stopped. And you then find yourself saying, okay, what are the
yeah,
transferable skills that I can take to something now,
yeah,
here and now, that I can
yeah.
work from home with? When it comes to presentations and coaching, it is something that I had a background in myself with international
Oh,
students and with corporate
uh-huh.
clients. But I
Mm,
was working solely with foreign nationals. I wasn't
mhm.
working with, native English
Yeah.
speakers. So
Mm,
one of the things that I found, and I just wondered, in the different industries that you were working in, would you have
mhm.
found the same? A presentation, as far as they were concerned, equated to one thing: PowerPoint technology.
Right.
Very little speaking. And so you
Interesting.
ended up with all this text on the page,
Yeah.
multiple multiplicities of text, trying to get them to understand that they still had to work on their
Yeah.
language skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't have that understanding.
Yeah.
Have you
Interesting.
ever run into that? Have you ever run into that issue?
Not from a foreign language point of view, but I do see it a lot. And talking about, yeah, certain events. I mean, I've had people come to me with presentations, and it's just been text on the screen, exactly what
Yes.
they're going to read out.
Yeah.
And that's, my
It's
response to
impossible.
that is, if they're going to do that, they might as well issue a white paper or something, because
Yeah.
there isn't really any point. If you're going to put all that information up at the screen, no one's going to look at you, no one's going to be listening to you, they're not even going to be looking at you, they're just going to be reading it on the screen, and they'll lose interest and then stop reading
Exactly.
altogether.
Yeah, and they may not even be able to read the screen. No,
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's true.
I need
Yeah.
my glasses. I don't know about you, but even in a
Yeah.
theater, you can't
Yeah.
focus. In a lecture hall, you can't always focus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So it is quite.
Yeah.
What, in your opinion, what has changed in the world of PowerPoint now that we've gone through into the pandemic?
Yes, I think it has. I think that there is an opportunity to have more information on the screen. Now, that doesn't mean to say you need more information on the screen, because we're looking at it right in front of us, as opposed to looking at it over there. So I think it's closer to us, because we're sitting right in front of the screen when we're online. So I think there is an opportunity to have more text, but as I say, it doesn't mean to say you need more text, depending on who your audience is and what it is you're presenting. I also think there's an opportunity to experiment more with colour, because before, if you were in a conference room environment, I would always have said, stay with a white, pale background with dark text, because you never know what the contrast's like until you get into that room. And
Exactly.
I've experienced it myself before, where we've had the opposite. We've had a nice dark background and white text, and you couldn't see it because it wasn't dark enough when it was on an overhead projector, for example.
Yes.
So that's another one. You think, oh, that'll be fine. It looks really, really good on the screen, but then it doesn't when it's on the overhead projector,
Yeah,
because
you're
it's kind of
so
grey
right.
and not black.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've often, because I've a performance teaching background, but I've often found that if I can't do the recce to see what the stage or the lecture theatre or the conference room is going to be like, I need to ask them to send me a photograph to see how, because if I can see that someone's PowerPoint is showing on the photograph, then I'll know how to put my PowerPoint together,
Yeah, because you'll lose detail, you'll lose information, people won't see things. I mean, it could be an absolute disaster if it's not any good for you. And then at the last minute, you'd be trying to change the backgrounds, and then you still won't see things. And there's an awful lot to do. So yeah, if it was an overhead projector, I would still go for a paler, not white, but paler background with dark text. You're going to be able to see that. But with online, you've definitely got more opportunities to use more colour and experiment a bit more, because people are going to be able to see, their monitors are going to be of a certain quality that they'll,
So would you suggest that in some respects it's easier to design for the online presentation, because you don't have to worry about fading and the sun coming in through the window?
Yeah, I would, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I suppose the other thing though is that people could be online on their phone and then they don't see much at all. But to be honest, any PowerPoint presentation on your phone, you're not going to see much. So
yeah, you really shouldn't be doing it on your phone. You should be doing it on your laptop, where you can have your monitor. And so in your opinion, then, what type of client would be coming through to you at the moment, like from the corporate world? What type of client would come through, and what would be their main problem?
Mostly I'm working with other entrepreneurs, to be honest. I have a couple of corporate clients. One is looking for templates, so it's like slide master template in PowerPoint that they're looking for. So they've got their branding, you know, they've got all that, they've got the colour palette, and they don't have any consistency in their presentations because there's no slide master in place. So someone's stuck a logo onto a presentation, not in the background, as in the slide master background. It's not embedded, and then it's moved around, and you know, all their presentations are different, so there's no consistency. That's what I'm finding. So I have a couple of clients like that.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point, Fiona. Consistency, like where you, like this is the template, for example, I'm using for all of my business block, and I'm keeping the color scheme the same. For writer's block, I have a different color scheme. I think it's really important to do that, and for you to be able to tell them that, because sometimes you think that very intelligent people will see the blatantly obvious, and they don't. They seem to forget.
One of the people I'm working with at the moment, or one of the clients I'm working with at the moment, I said, "Oh, do you want to send me the templates you've got?" And they're just not templates. They're, as I say, they're just a logo stuck on, and then anybody can move that logo to any location they want to. So that's where they're going to lose their consistency. Whereas if it's in the background, then it's going to be easier for them to work with. So I have a couple of clients like that where we're doing a template first, and then we'll do training for the key staff so they know how to use the template and how to go forward. And you know, I mean, they can still edit things obviously, but you know, just how to manage that, and then some of the tips and tricks around working with the template smartly.
So getting the language to match the template.
Yeah. And
very
how you
important.
Can work, how you can work with it. Because there could be circumstances where you want to put an image on, you've got your branding in the corners, you know, it might not fit, you might not want the image the full size of the screen because it might not fit properly, and you don't want to distort it, but the logos could then be in the way. So how to maybe remove the logos, but without doing that for the whole presentation, you can just do it with one slide. It's how to do that then so that the image fits better, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I never normally put as much text on mine as I do now, but I'm only doing that now because I noticed that people, because they can manipulate their screens and make them larger and smaller, they can then zoom into what's the Twitter handle, what's the LinkedIn handle, let's have a look at that. Exactly. It's there somewhere. So that then changes the way you use your DPs, doesn't it? And your general slides. But I think it's an extremely good idea for people, even if they are fairly adept at using PowerPoint, maybe since the early noughties or what have you, to still go revisit someone like yourself and say, look, is this working for me? Or do I have forest for the tree syndrome here and think that it is working when it's not? Can you please tell me, can we refresh the brand that way?
Absolutely, But just any of the training, because I'm obviously doing training as well, but any of the training that I have done, I haven't had one situation where fairly quickly someone hasn't said, oh, that's a game changer for me. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, absolutely. It does a lot more than people think. You know, most people don't know half of what PowerPoint could do. I think they've probably started using it in the corporate world, maybe never had training, really. You know, someone next to them has said, oh, you just do this and you do that and do that and do the other. And that's you know, they've sort of self-taught, and then they're missing all these functionality, all the, you know, these tools because they don't know and haven't had formal training.
And do you know, one thing I find that very few people are trained in is how to close out a presentation using PowerPoint. Because sometimes what they do is they just know, oh, I've got to the last of my slides here, so I'll just wind up quickly, you know, and they forget that you still have to bring it to a logical end in the same way that you started your presentation. You have to close it out properly. So matching that language with the slide and bringing everything full circle. Not everybody can do it.
No, you know, I know. There's no finishing slide, even if it just says the end or questions.
Something.
Simple as that.
Now, is, for example, with your formal versus informal presentations, do you approach it differently when it comes to using PowerPoint? Or,
as I say, I think it depends what the presentation is for. You know what I mean? Like if it's a business presentation, maybe you're doing a sales webinar or, you know, something like that to maybe get new clients, I would want to keep it professional. I would want it to look crisp and clean. I wouldn't be using fancy animation. I wouldn't be using fancy slide transitions either. There probably wouldn't be any sound online. That's another thing for the online as well. I wouldn't be using sound. I had one client come to me quite early on when I first started, and she had, every time she had animation, so she had bullet points, and every time she animated them, there was a little click sound, and she didn't know how to get that noise off. Now, it was fine in the in-person environment because people didn't really notice it. because you probably only hear it through the laptop, and then all of a sudden everyone can hear it through their headsets, and she found it really, really distracting.
Yes, I know.
It's quite funny because she said numerous people have tried to get rid of it. They don't know how to get rid of it. And I said, oh, well, you can put sound on animation, so that's fine. I can take that off for you. She said, oh, didn't know that. So that's definitely one thing. I've digressed now and I've forgotten the question. What was talking about? Oh, yeah, types of presentations, formal and informal.
Informal
so yeah, for
ones.
formal ones, yeah. So I would definitely keep it crisp, keep it clean, less animation, certainly no sound unless you're doing a video or something like that. But with formal ones, you can have more fun. You can do a bit more animation. There's one thing that I've started showing people recently. There's a transition that I really like, and it's a pair of curtains. So the slide draws away with a pair of curtains.
Yes.
And if you got a really nice picture, you just find a picture off the internet of a red curtains, you've then got this lovely red curtain, these lovely red curtains opening for like a product launch or a service launch or something. So simple, but really quite effective.
Yeah,
so you
very
can have
effective
fun with it as well.
For a launch in particular. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can do some nice fancy things like, well, not even fancy, but just fun things like that, but it depends on the circumstance. I think that's the key thing, really,
Yeah, absolutely. And really taking time to get to know your PowerPoint and how it will work for you. Isn't that right? What about projectors? Yeah. Projectors sometimes you can go into a place, I find, and they can have an ancient projector. And you think, oh my God, is this even going to do the job? How far away? Can we move this thing closer?
I was just going to say, one propped up on books, you mean?
Yes.
To get the angle right.
It can be soul destroying when that happens, can't it? And
yeah, I know.
You almost have to have two versions.
Yeah, I haven't seen that for a while, but if you remember when you see that, that's where you get the screen tapering, depending on how, whether it's looking up or whether it's coming down. Usually if they're wall mounted ones, even if they are, somewhat older, you can usually get that fairly square on your screen.
Yeah.
But yeah, we used to have one actually in Oriflame in the meeting room. That's, again, it's going back a long way, but on the table. So that would be the same. It would be, slightly edged. Another thing I see actually is that you've got different slide sizes for a projector versus monitor as well. And that's another thing I'm seeing. Some people are coming to me with the projector style sizes. And if you are using that slide type on a monitor, you're going to get 2 black bars down the side. So you're not using your full screen. And vice versa, if you're using a wide screen on a projector, you'll get 2 bars kind of along the top, 2 black bars. So you're not using the full screen size, basically.
Yes.
So that's another thing that people don't seem to be aware of.
Yes. And all those tips are super important. Can we just go back to when you started the company? So when did you actually launch?
I launched in October 2019. But as I say, I didn't really do anything because I wasn't sure what I was doing. I had a few other issues. So that's when I think early in January, that's when I decided to do this charity event, because I thought that would give me a bit of exposure from a coaching perspective, and it'll make me feel a bit more confident about public speaking, and just put myself out there.
So that was like you set a goal, a major milestone. It came to pass. It was a great success. Then lockdown hits. What about the other milestones that you had perhaps projected into the future? Did you have to tweak very much of your business plan?
Well, as I say, to start with, I was going to do coaching, executive coaching, life coaching, whatever you want to call it, business coaching, hence the business name, Imagine Coaching. And then, as I said, the first couple of weeks in COVID, I mean, working from home in my part-time day job, had the kids at home. I think very early on, my daughter got a cough and a cold, so then we were all isolated for several weeks anyway, very, very early on. So yeah, we were really thrown in at the deep end, I suppose, and we didn't get, I don't think she got tested then. They changed all the rules with too many people getting tested, so we didn't get tested, and all that sort of stuff. We've all been there, I know now.
Which adds so much worry.
I think at the beginning, definitely at the beginning, it was just, let's just get through, doing my day job and then trying to do the hours that I need to for that job. So I'd say for the first month, didn't really do anything.
Yes.
Then I started thinking, okay, I've set up this business. I can't just leave it sitting there doing nothing. So I was trying to drum up some business, and I had a discovery call what was really interesting was what they said in the text message really contradicted what they'd said when we spoke. And the person had actually already explained to me that they'd invested quite a lot of money in a business that was about to launch and couldn't, because it was an in-person type business service. And, you know, they were really at their wits' end. So I offered a session for them, an hour's session. So we did the session, and during that session, it turned out that what they actually needed was help with PowerPoint, because they were doing a webinar to try and get some business, some online business, you know, having pivoted themselves, and they didn't know how to use PowerPoint. So at the end of the session, I said, look, I've done training before. I'm a, you know, Microsoft trainer. I'll do a PowerPoint session with you. And they said, oh my God, really? And I said, yeah, I will, because look, we're all struggling at the moment. You know, I have a job, so it's not that bad, but I can see, you know, this person invested a lot of money and just didn't really know how to start, you know, moving forward again then.
Yes.
So we did the hour session, and it went very well. And I suppose maybe a day after, I thought, oh, maybe other people need help with PowerPoint as well, because they're going online. They don't know how to use it. They didn't need to use it before, because they were doing things in person and they weren't presenting to anyone, weren't doing webinars, you know. So I set up a few Eventbrite sessions. Now, I'd used Eventbrite for my my charity event, so I knew how to use that. So there was definitely some value in doing something there.
Yes.
Just advertised through Facebook, and had paying clients then to do courses, you know, just sort of 1.5 hour sessions on how to use PowerPoint and some advanced sessions. And
well, sorry to interrupt you on that. If I could just for a second, how did you find Facebook ads? I presume it was Facebook ads that you used. Was it?
I set up a business, I set up a business account and set up an event. So it's Facebook events. So I didn't actually advertise. It was just through events and, you know, sort of inviting people and friends of friends, that sort of thing to start with. So I didn't actually use the ads. And then I posted on LinkedIn a little bit and said, oh, you know, we just did this PowerPoint session, blah, blah, blah. And I had somebody approach me who I had done training with previously through the company I was employed with. And they said to me, look, I'm just gone out on my own. I used to work for a big training corporation. Now I'm working on my own, and I need some help with PowerPoint, because I've never had formal training, even though this person had probably been working with PowerPoint for 20, 30 years. So I said, yeah, no problem. So we did a one-to-one. That was great. And then moved on from there, really. So I think for me, having, you know, with COVID and the lockdown, it gave me the opportunity to build my business up, to be into a position where last month I gave up the role, because it was the flexibility. You know, if I was working, it was a part-time role, I was working 20 hours, but if I was going into work every morning, I wouldn't have been able to take client calls. I wouldn't have been able to juggle things around. Yes. So for me, COVID's given me the opportunity to grow the business and then, you know, give up the corporate role and go full time, because I just wouldn't have had that opportunity otherwise. You know, so people ring you and they, oh, you know, can you make a call at 10 o'clock tomorrow? Well, yeah, I can juggle my hours around, because we're all working at home, and, you know, the expectations were that I do my 20 hours, but they would be any hours.
Yes.
You know, not 9 till 1, which I would have done previously. So that really gave me the opportunity to build things up, and then you know, have some clients already on the books.
So now that you've actually done it, you actually did it last month. You actually took the decision, and it is happening now. How do you feel in yourself as a lady entrepreneur now, who's really pushing forward as a coach? Do you feel good?
I feel good. Yeah, I really feel good, and I'm absolutely delighted with the decision. I have no hesitation whatsoever. Really, really happy that that it's worked out this way. And it was also part of a plan. You see, you were talking about plans earlier. I'd say early on in the lockdown as well, we were living in, I had 2 daughters, primary school age. And I'd say fairly early on in the lockdown, we realised that we wanted to move house as well. We were living in a small estate, in a terraced estate. So from, I'd say, about April last year, we got all the paperwork done. So as soon as the lockdown finished, we had the house was up on the market very, very quickly. We had viewings already arranged to go and view all the houses. So part of the plan was to move house before I could give them a job, obviously, as well, with the mortgage and that sort of thing.
Yes.
So we moved into our new house with an office, which I'm in now, in January, the end of January, in the middle of another lockdown, which was very challenging moving house, but we managed it.
How did you do that? How did you do that? That's a
big challenge.
Situation.
Yeah, big challenge. We had to stay. We were planning on. We didn't move that far. It's only sort of 15, 20 kilometres away, so it wasn't that far, but just the logistics of it were very challenging. We had to stay in a holiday home for a week, which is not the end of the world, but, we couldn't stay with anybody because there's, you'd be putting other people at risk if you were going to stay with anyone. I know the kids weren't at school, but my husband still goes out to work. So, we couldn't risk staying with anybody else because of that. It was even challenging getting removers. It was challenging. We did it, but it was challenging.
Yes. I can imagine. People forget about that, booking removals vans.
Yeah, and all that sort of thing, because they obviously want you all out of the house, and it's like, oh, okay, so we all have to be out, and so it was challenging.
So if you can push through and make it through 14 months like this and accomplish all of those major life changes as well, because let's face it, moving house is a huge deal.
It is.
It is quite a thing. I mean, you've got so much that you've achieved in the 14 months.
Yeah. Actually,
aside from having actually gone and established the business properly,
Yeah.
So what now? What is going to be the future now for you, do you think? Where are you really pointing?
I think really just building up the clients that I have. I would definitely I like the one-to-ones, and I suppose what I'm specialising in with regards to the one-to-ones for entrepreneurs would be just, somebody wants an hour, I want to learn how to do this.
Yes.
And it's not just PowerPoint, I would do it in Word, Excel, Outlook. Somebody just wants help doing one thing, and that's fine. I'll just do an hour session with the minimum. There might be more, obviously, depending on what they want. I don't think there's that many people out there doing that sort of service. So that's one thing. I would like to get more corporate clients. I like the presentation design work, and I like creating presentations for people, because that's also what I offer. I like doing that. That's nice work, because I must admit, I enjoyed the training, I enjoy the one-to-ones, I enjoy getting to know people on the one-to-ones, but I like PowerPoint as well. I like messing around with it and playing around and making things look nice and look professional.
Well, would you have called the house move a distraction, or did it actually focus you more?
I think it focused more, because we were in a very open plan house before, and it was challenging. So I think it definitely more focused, because it was I had a lot on my plate, because I was trying to work 20 hours, build up business. I'm doing quite a few courses as well, always doing courses, lifelong learner, and then planning moving as well. Huge amount on my plate. So it's nice to have a bit, I wouldn't say less time, but a bit less going on at the moment,
So what have you got any events organized right now? What projects or
I'm just about to launch my website, actually. Yeah, my website's just about to go live. Yeah, so any day now. That's been a challenge. It's been a few technical issues with it. Not so much the design, but actual technical issues for hosting. Has been a couple of weeks with that, and losing emails and all that sort of thing, which I haven't been dealing with. My designer has, but that's taken an extra couple of weeks to sort out all those issues. So,
as most people can probably see, that this show is powered by Women's Inspire. Mm-hmm. And I know that networks are very important to all of us. How long have you been in the Women's Inspire network now, and how have you found it?
Yeah, it's a year actually, because it was May I joined last year. I just got my renewal through. I found it to be very, very good actually. So I was introduced to Samantha Kelly by one of the women members, not formally introduced, but just through LinkedIn, because I would see it was the person I did my training with, actually, my IT teacher training. So she's in the WIN group, and I happened to see her commenting on somebody's post, which happened to be Sam, through LinkedIn, and I thought, well, that person seems very interesting. And then I think she posted something, probably it wasn't in lockdown, it was before the lockdown actually, but she posted something about helping people out, and if anybody needed help with something. So I reached out and said, I'm hosting this charity event, would you give it help me out with promoting that. So she did. And then Sam actually spoke at a International Women's event in Cork. That was the Friday before International Women's Day. So I went along to that and I met her and introduced myself. So we did get to meet in person. And then as I was building things up, I was sort of in touch with her again and decided to join. But I think it's having a good network is really, really key.
Yes.
It's very, very important. And for me, the reason why the Women's Inspire Network works for me is because my husband does shift work and I've got 2 small kids. So I can't be meeting people in person in the evenings. I can make some meetings, but a lot of them I'd be paying for a childminder, I'd be paying 50 quid for the privilege of going off to a networking meeting, which, if you're starting out in business, you can't afford that,
No, you can't. And really, I think WIN, Women's Inspire Network, is one of the really good ones out there internationally. It's not just in Ireland, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're right. But I just find it very inclusive. I find it very nice.
Yes.
I've got to know people very well. You know, there's been some really nice things going on in there, I think. You know what I mean?
And
nice.
because there are men involved as well. It's not just women. But the mindset of the person who joins that network and stays in it is very similar to your own. You know, you'll know that they are dedicated to what they're doing. They really want to make it work, and for that reason, you know, there's a wealth of knowledge that you can draw on, which is, you know, hugely important as well.
Absolutely. I started having one-to-ones, reaching out to people now and asking for one-to-ones just to find out who people are and what they do. And, you know, even that's very powerful, because I just didn't have the time before, what with everything else I was up to.
I know.
So now that I've given up the corporate role, I'm reaching out to people and trying to have a couple of meetings a week just to have a chat with people. I do know some people, but there's a lot of people that I don't know. I might recognise the name, but I've never spoken to them, not be sure what they do. So I'm really making an effort to get to know other people within the network and find out what they do.
Do you find that there are still people coming through to you who would be afraid of the technology and the actual coaching process, that they're actually nervous? Perhaps they should have asked the kinds of questions that they're asking a few years ago, but they were too nervous. They were too.
I did one session with somebody who had never ever used PowerPoint before, not from a corporate background, completely different background, and said, I need to do a presentation. I don't even know what it is, you know.
And reaching out to people like that who are perhaps now put in a position where they've lost their job and they need to start a company themselves, but they don't have those skills. I mean, skills that I suppose if you're in education the way I was as well, and the performing arts, people were using media in that way. They were using PowerPoint presentations for lectures all the time since 2000. But there are people today who actually are 20 years on.
Well, this is it. You see, this person didn't have a corporate background, was of a certain age where they wouldn't have used it like at school or at university. And I mean, I'm the same. I didn't even know how to use a computer when I was at university. So I got my mum to type my dissertation off with her typewriter, and then I paid somebody to actually do it, probably in Word, on a word processor. So, you know, that's the way it was way back then. You know, not everybody did learn how to use these tools. So if you were working in an environment where you didn't have to use that, and all of a sudden now you do, then there's going to be people out there that really don't know how to do it. You know, I wasn't laughing as in laughing that they didn't know how to do it, but more, you know, there are people out there that have never used these tools before, and if you said presentation software, they wouldn't have a clue what you're on about. You know, if they're just from a different sector where they don't have to do that,
where it wasn't required, or there was someone who could do it for them, you know. And that person is still out there. I totally agree with you, because I know that even in 10 years ago, 15 years ago, even for people who were a little bit older, there were courses put on to introduce you. But now those courses aren't available. What do you do in a pandemic?
Yeah, exactly.
You've got to go. So you really covered the whole gauntlet. So you've got that level of knowledge of client coming through, you know, with a very low technical ability. And who haven't had the practice, and you go straight up to corporate level. So look, you're clearly in a whole new, you're experiencing a new adventure in your life. You've launched now, the website's about to happen. I'd love to revisit you in about 6 months and see what's happened. That would be great if we could do that. Fiona Walsh, Imagine Coaching. Thank you very much for being on the show today. This is the right person to go to if you're a little bit nervous, you don't know whether or not you've got the full presentation package that you think you'll need for your new business, or if your business has simply restructured and you've lost your team. Get on to Fiona Walsh. She'll be able to help you. And Fiona, I wish you the very, very best, and I can't wait to see the new website.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me, Miriam.
It was great talking to you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye for now, everybody. Listen, thank you very much indeed for watching the show today. We will be with you next week These shows are going out every Monday, and I hope to be able to talk to you, new guests, very, very soon. So talk to you soon. Bye-bye.